So today we're going to be performing a quick calibration check on an instrument that has a CO2 sensor. This would be a useful method to use if the only thing you have is pure CO2 and you aren't sure if the instrument is out of calibration, or maybe someone has adjusted the CO2 span on the back of the instrument and hasn't communicated that fact. So what we're going to use today is a 60 cc syringe with a double orange connector. Out of this tube I have flowing pure CO2 at the moment. So what we're going to do is we're going to check the 16.66% level. So the first thing I'm going to do is fill the syringe with pure CO2, and then I'm going to evacuate all but 10 cc's of the syringe. And then the next thing I'm going to do is pull in room air. And so the end result of this is that we have 10 cc's of pure CO2. The remainder is ambient air. Ambient air is typically anywhere from 0.04 to 0.10%, so it's not statistically significant. The oxygen is also useful as a marker to show if we've done this correctly, because 5/6 of this should be room air. So now we're going to inject it slowly into the instrument. And you could use a smaller syringe. 60 cc's is not necessarily the size that you need. The instrument only requires probably about 20 cc's of volume. The reason why I like to use 60 is because the margin of error will be smaller when you're dealing with higher volumes. And so that looks pretty stable. We end up with 16.8, and the sensor is a little bit pressurized as I am injecting the gas. As you can see, it's not really going to change much, and it'll probably drift down a little bit as I stop plunging gas in. And so this verifies that we're pretty close on the 16%, 16.7. And the oxygen is 17.2, which should represent 5/6 of 20.9%. And that's you can adjust the CO2 span on the back. Again, it's always better to calibrate an instrument with a known CO2 concentration, such as 20% CO2 balanced in nitrogen. But as a last resort, if you have pure CO2 and want to check multiple points, you can do that. One other thing you can do is, instead of checking 10 cc's of pure CO2, you can also fill it halfway with pure CO2 and see if the CO2 ends up at 50%. That's it.